to the Pulse Collective podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the PCP, otherwise known as the Pulse Collective podcast. As always, I'm your host, Shahrukh Ansari. This is the show where we sit down with top business leaders and entrepreneurs to uncover their journeys, lessons, and vision for the future of their industries. For those of you watching or listening for the first time, we are Pulse Collective. We're a growth partnership for businesses all across the country, helping them multiply their revenue and unlock their potential through AI-powered systems. So if you're actually looking for proven ways to attract more clients or boost your overall retention and elevate your customer experience, you're here in the right place. Drop us a message down below and we'll see if anybody from our team of consultants can reach out and see if it's a fit for us to work together. Now, today I'm very excited because I'm joined by Roberto Magaña, who is the founder and CEO over at NovoSculpt. It's a clinic based out of Connecticut that has patented a minimally invasive body contouring procedure, no scalpels, no stitches, and no general anesthesia. And you can actually lose up to 11 pounds of fat in the process as well. So it's going to be very exciting to actually get a little bit more context into that. Roberto has spent 15 years in the cosmetic surgical space, running operations for a New York City plastic surgery practice and also consulting for others in the process as well. Now, I'm really excited before going a little bit deeper. So, Roberto, welcome to the show. Let's start right there and excited to have you on.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's a pleasure to be on.
So, can you take us back to the years that you were running somebody else's plastic surgery practice and what was the specific things that kept you thinking that, this category is solvable for some of the problems you're seeing?
Thank you. It's a good question. I ran different plastic surgery practices for a period of about 15 years in New York and surrounding areas. And as part of the process of managing the practice, there's an element of managing the customer experience as well. In that process, a few things became apparent to me. That the surgical approach, as advanced and as sophisticated, advanced and highly sophisticated as it is, has its physical limitations. Naturally, things like pain are to a degree inevitable in every procedure. Discomfort also to a degree inevitable, and the notion that a step forward of a progressive approach, if you will, to the existing procedures could be attained was really what made NovoSculpt, conformed the initial aspect of the foundation of NovoSculpt. We personally wanted to find a way to make things a bit easier for customers, less painful, less downtime, and a better experience overall. And being a non-physician, that was particularly challenging because, well, where do you start? So I partnered with very intelligent people, including physicians and chemists and engineers, to find ways to make the experience a bit more palatable for prospective patients without sacrificing any of the results. Fortunately for us, we did find methods of doing this and we submitted them for patent protection, and it's patent pending currently.
Wow. No, I honestly think just looking back at for a lot of people that may be watching that aren't as knowledgeable about the cosmetology space, one thing, just extending on what you were saying, is a lot of people right now are being sold, which sounds great in ads, but non-invasive treatments. They typically are talking about how non-invasive treatments are amazing and, it's much quicker recovery and you still get basically the same results. But I know you're pretty blunt that they are limited by physics as well. So I want you to just make that case because I'm sure a lot of people listening are being sold on that. So what sets what you're offering apart?
Of course, I think it's quite rational for any individual to find the easiest, least painful, and most economic avenue to obtain results. And that only makes sense. Any rational, logical person would seek that. And the birth of numerous treatments, non-invasive treatments, have come about. Examples are, for example, CoolSculpting and M-Sculpt is another one. Things that claim to yield results of fat removal or fat deterioration without ever puncturing the skin. Now, ideally, that if that were possible, that would be the go-to mechanism to do body contouring. Unfortunately, science has not gotten us there quite yet. Nothing substitutes the removal of fat when it comes to body contouring. Now, and we should make a distinction between what weight loss is and what body contouring is, because weight loss, there are minimally invasive ways, practically non-invasive ways of losing weight, like GLP-1s. That's an example du jour, right? But everyone, or many people at least, I think 1 in 8 people is the most recent statistic of people using GLP-1s in the United States. Now, those avenues of reducing weight are effective.
Sorry,
We see that.
just for the people that may not know what GLP-1 is, like what could you just
Oh,
elaborate on
yes.
that?
GLP-1s is a family of molecules that are injectables. These are appetite suppressants, and the commercial names are Ozempic, Mounjaro, and there are a wide variety right now of injectables that are of members of the GLP-1 family, and they're doing extremely well. So that, as a weight loss mechanism, is very effective, and it's a non-invasive way or minimally invasive way to do so. Body contouring, which is obtaining the desired shape of the body in a treatment session, also has these non-invasive approaches. As I mentioned before, we have CoolSculpting, M-sculpting, and all of these things. The fact of the matter is that the results that can be expected from non-invasive processes are extremely limited, if at all effective at any measure. Physics dictates that in order for us to reduce volume in an area of the human body, we must extract mass from it. There's no magic to go around these principles. We're not at a point where we can violate those principles in physics quite yet, or work around them if you would. So a large portion of our consumer base are people who have used these non-invasive treatments only to end up, seeking a minimally invasive one. So this is a next step up in invasiveness from all of those things, a sweet spot, if you will, between what's non-invasive and what is more highly invasive, like traditional liposuction. So that's where NovoSculpt lives. Is we are able to physically extract fat and transfer it to create volume elsewhere. So it's very important for people to know that there are limits in science as to what can be done, and that nothing really can substitute the mechanical aspect of removing fat from the human body,
I
which is
think
what we
the
do.
I think the biggest thing is just as somebody who like I've worked with and also just people that are in the fitness space that are there's a really big focus now on obviously just the way you look. People are making healthier choices just as a society as a whole, especially in North America. But I think the biggest resistance that I can think, just out of personal people, would be recovery and time away from potentially like going to the gym or taking care of themselves. So, how does the recovery look like? Because that was one thing that I thought was very interesting.
Of course, with non-invasive treatments, there's of course no recovery time needed. Of course, there's no effect, right? Well, there's no result. Patients these days, or consumers, are looking for optimal results with optimal recovery times, because many people in a very active economy are not able to take a couple of weeks off, especially off of a cosmetic procedure, to recover. So one of the advantages of NovoSculpt is that we are able to target fat almost exclusively, largely leaving surrounding tissue unaffected. So we don't really irritate muscle or the dermis very much. We're very specific to the fat. What this translates into is that what it means essentially is that the recovery time is is shortened significantly. So many of our patients go back to regular activity without including weightlifting within 2 to 3 days. They're back.
Wow.
They're back in the office, or they're essentially running their regular life, and this is a huge advantage to them, because these are people who our customer base tends to be a very well-educated, knowledgeable customer base. They understand the difference between treatments, and they are looking for something that is not only effective, but is also not inconvenient for their everyday life. So they are able to return to their everyday life, children, family, work, all these things, without having these tremendously long downtimes that traditional liposuction yields. So that's a tremendous advantage for us. And our patients are extremely happy about that. That particular portion is a very strong element of our value proposition.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine also one of the big, I don't want to say questions, but just for the average person would be like educating the market on this. Because a big part, like it's one thing to sell it. And of course, you have a very valuable service that you know can get results for people. But I'm sure there's a lot of people and naysayers that will be like, okay, this is still going into my body. I'm sure I can recover. What are the side effects of it? Like if that happens. And so, how much of your job right now, just being the owner of this, it would be educating the market, and how are you educating the market right now?
Right. So it's a tremendous part of the job, right? Essentially, any any medical service, including either surgical or non or minimally invasive, is a trust business. People need to trust the brand or the individual provider or both in order to receive any services. And the way that we educate our consumer base or prospective consumer base in regards to this is through advertising. We have a YouTube channel which we have multiple videos explaining what NovoSculpt is, how it works, and how it can be beneficial to the prospective consumer. And we use a lot of social media advertising as well. The rationale for this is that people will not undergo a procedure that they don't know or that they don't understand. And we make significant investments to make sure that people do understand what we do, and that by the time that they make a decision to make a consultation, they're already sufficiently informed about the very basics of what NovoSculpt is, so that they don't think that it's a non-invasive process, for example. Right? And this is a capital-intensive endeavor. A significant investment goes into educating the consumer base in order to recruit leads and patients.
Would you say like your market, like people you mentioned, like there's typically highly educated people that have done their research before even booking a
Uh-huh.
consult with you. But
Uh-huh.
out of curiosity, like what is the demographic usually for people that are booking these consults and actually getting a session booked in?
Right. So demographic is a pretty wide one, right? Of the elements of marketing, we have demographics, we have different forms of segmentation like psychographic and others, but particularly the demographic is 85% of our consumer base is female. It is between the ages of 25 and 55 years of age. So given today's dynamics on marriage and all of these things, they're typically right before reproductive age or right after it, right? The the housewife who has already had children and wants to increase the profile of her body, they come to us. And geographically, which is relevant for this effect, we have most of our clientele comes from the Northeast. We do have people who travel in for the procedure from places as far as California, but most of the people are within those age ranges and tend to be within the Northeast.
That does make sense because I'm thinking about like from one perspective. I actually have a client of ours who I think I told you this when we initially spoke is like an IV. They run a multinational IV clinic, so they do
Oh,
lipo
yes, you did.
treatments and things like that. But they have they don't really have a set demographic. They have a lot of young people, like university students that come, and they also have elderly people as well. So the reason I was getting at that question is this is actually a product or this is a service that matters to everyone. It's not just a set demographic. And honestly, the more work that we've done in this space, we've seen that right now you're seeing mostly females, but there's an increasing market trend of male population that are actually looking into these services as well. Just med spa services, body sculpting, body contouring, and I'm sure eventually this as well. So it's definitely something. Is that something that you're noticing over the past few years?
Indeed, and I think it's a very good point, and that's a significant aspect for many companies to analyze to project their own growth. Currently, between 10 and 15% of our patients are male. Almost all patients, 9 out of 10, are female patients. The reason for this is because women tend to be better educated about this particular type of procedure than men are. Now, men normally don't know. Culturally, we don't really discuss plastic surgery or cosmetic surgeries amongst men very much, and that leads to many men just not knowing what can be done. So in men who are middle-aged, let's say, who have difficulty retaining the body shape that they want, this is an extremely effective and efficient way of obtaining a desired look. Because let's face it, after you hit 40 or 45 or 50, losing fat, right? You know, the well-known love handles, for example, right? Those are very difficult for men to get rid of. Right? Our bodies change with time, and our hormonal levels change. So we need a bit of a push in order to attain the body that we want to have. And NovoSculpt is a very efficient way of obtaining it, because in a single treatment session, men can indeed obtain the desired look that they want. So social media and other marketing strategies are ones that are very effective in informing and educating patients as to what can be done. And the best way of doing that is with before and afters, because a man might say, well, no, that's really more of a female thing. But if you look at an advertisement, let's say with a before and an after of a man who significantly changed his body, well, then that garners interest. Right? So
100%,
yes,
100%. Especially,
effectively, I believe, lastly, that the future of this business relies more on men than is currently thought.
no, definitely. I think there's a huge opportunity as well. And just me personally, I can even speak for myself. Like, just I think a year ago, I would have never thought, but my sister, she has a med spa clinic. So she has like she offers body sculpting, laser, and the entire bit. And she reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, like I can give you 2 sessions for body sculpting, just like or M sculpt, I think that's what it was called." I was like, "Okay, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a shot." But the thing is, as guys, we also have that thing of like, I don't want to do this because it could like question your masculinity in a way sometimes for some people. But I did notice like maybe 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been open to that. And I did it. And honestly, like for me, like it felt completely normal. Like I personally wasn't consistent enough with it to possibly see the results. So that's one thing I can say. Those non-invasive treatments definitely don't give you the results that Roberto's talking about in 1 or 2 sessions. You definitely need to
Mhm.
go to quite a few. But yeah, no, definitely just speaking from personal experience, that's something I have also opened up to a lot more. So I can see the market also opening up to that.
And they're not alone in this. As I was mentioning, yeah, cosmetic procedures have a feminizing effect to them. Well, not effect. They have a feminizing aspect to them that men typically reject, right? In principle. I don't want to do, I want to go to the gym as opposed to getting plastic surgery or any surgical procedures. But that is changing. So we are evolving into a place where men are increasingly more comfortable with the idea of having something done.
Yeah, no, definitely. I want to get into now just talking from as a business founder. Obviously, there's a lot of things that you need to juggle. There's the product, which you guys have clearly perfected, and now you're sending the word out by using social media. But there's a lot of things that are changing. Previously, we were noticing a lot of people were focused on perfecting a website. And there's a lot of business owners that we speak to that are perfecting their website. They're constantly thinking about how should I optimize this page so it's ranking higher on Google. And one thing that changed a bit when social ads took over, and not just social ads, but specifically when AI entered the game, was the way that people are looking for services has foundationally changed. And I wanted to let you actually explain that because I thought that was a really valuable piece of information for people that are listening is I don't think most operators in your space have caught up to that yet. So what is this new way that you're seeing people are starting to research services like yours?
Of course. Yes, of course. As we were discussing recently, the level of information, the level of efficiency with which a person can understand a service is one thing that will drive the decision-making process in terms of purchasing behavior. Now, previously, a few years ago, not that long ago, really, SEO was king, right? Making investments in optimizing web page content was paramount in terms of a level of expense and making use of keywords and all of these elements that form part of SEO in order to be able to recruit a, a lead. in any business. And that was a very general, not very specific. I mean, it yielded results naturally. Right? More intentional Google ads, right? You said to narrow, increase the intensity and narrow the scope to be able to cater to the people that might be interested. That Google ads and social media ads would be a more efficient way of doing this. So the shift between SEO and these types of advertisements in social media and Google really it took the lion's share of marketing expenses across all industries, I believe. And this, which brings us to the most interesting part that is current, is also changing. We are seeing lots of people make decisions based on advice given by their AI agents. So someone who has ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI agent they use to advise them, because now these machines are advising us as to what to do. If a company is not making investments, substantial investments, to make sure that these AIs know that the company exists, for example, NovoSculpt. If an AI does not know that NovoSculpt exists, it will not be able to recommend it to anyone. And to make sure that the data that is fed into the system, meaning the ecosystem, the zeitgeist, is one that the AI can find and understand to subsequently be able to recommend, is really what today's challenge is in marketing. I think that most people recognize this or are starting to recognize it. And the companies that are offering services in terms of marketing and social media and digital marketing specifically are now directly advertising these services. So NovoSculpt has thankfully, a tremendous body of knowledge that is able to be fed into AI so that AIs can explain it to consumers. And we have been making significant investments in time and capital in order to make sure that these are reachable by prospective consumers via AI agents.
No, definitely. And I think like you hit the nail on the head, and a lot of people are kind of starting to open up to this realization, but clearly you've been investing in this already. But CEO used to be, like you said, it was king, but AEO, like agentic engine optimization, is kind of like the new wave where a lot of us, like I definitely will go on Claude or ChatGPT in the morning and just be like, hey, like, is there like a good food spot near me that I can test, that I can try out? And it would typically just recommend you a few things based on also your past patterns, because ultimately it knows you better than a lot of people will know you. So you end up taking
Right.
its word for it. But the one thing that I think sets apart what you're saying is you saw this coming from before, and you guys have already jumped ahead of the curve on making that a focus. So if there's anything you can share about what you guys are doing to make that easier without getting too specific, because I'm sure a lot of that
Uh-huh.
is strategy, but
Uh-huh.
what are you doing at a high level to make sure that's happening, and how are you tracking that it's actually working as well?
These are very good questions. Now, I think that because of the nature of the industry, particularly in medicine and cosmetic aesthetic medicine, it's a very labor intensive process. So most of the managers and people who work for plastic surgery companies tend to focus heavily on day-to-day things and typically don't invest that much time in the creation of content. Not just recorded content or content for ads or for social media, but documented content that truly explains what it is that they do and what their value proposition is. So a lot of people are relying on word of mouth and things that with time tend to work, but are not optimal, right? They lack the optimal element of making sure that the highest return is achieved in the lowest period of time. And I think that that's something that sets us apart. We have invested significant time and effort in creating a body of knowledge that's documented that explains why come to us to begin with, right? What makes us better than anything or anyone else in terms of what we do. So this content, when applied correctly to the right places, a website is a good resource for that. Creating these articles to write on your website, it's a significant source of knowledge for prospective consumer and for an AI. So we've made significant investments in that, such that media, different forms of media are aware of what we do, how we do it, and why people should come to us and not to the office next door,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Honestly, the biggest thing is that AI does not live on every single website. So we have clients of ours who previously they were optimizing for SEO and they were posting a bunch of content on LinkedIn. They were getting a lot of people that were liking their posts, sending them LinkedIn DMs, but ultimately the problem was that no AI is actually reading that content off of a LinkedIn website. So, kind of like what Roberto was touching on, is taking that content, redefining it, and putting it back onto places that it can actually see it, AKA a website, a YouTube channel, an Instagram page, a TikTok page. That's where your social proof, and you have an abundance of content that you've been educating people on. And AI loves those types of things. So it loves seeing social proof. It loves seeing, like, okay, I'm looking for a way to burn fat surgically or an actual procedure. It is so specific. So when you have these things, it definitely ranks you higher and it prefers you as a search compared to SEO or just posting content organically on social media. It does require a full repurpose process. So it's good to hear that there's businesses that are actually doing that because it's a completely different playbook from SEO. So that's definitely something that hopefully people get some value on, is look into some of those things when it comes to AEO as well, not just your website. Before we kind of wrap up, there's a couple of things that I really wanted to cover quickly, just at a high level. You mentioned to me, which was very, very interesting. You mentioned that your business has a quirk that most businesses actually don't. It's a one time transaction for most people. And part of your value proposition is bringing people in that you can get results off of one service. You don't need to keep coming back again and again. Now, obviously, me, I am looking at that as okay, there's no repeat treatments or anything like that. So, how do you ensure that you have enough volume coming in because you live as a one transaction business for most people? So, how does that work? Like, how does your top of funnel typically work?
Right. So the patient recruitment in top of funnel is one where that is articulated as a feature. People that have been around for a while and know the market are now rather fed up with things that require repeat treatments and don't really work very well. For example, CoolSculpt. And it becomes appealing to many people to say, well, I get this done once and I get the body that I want and I get it done. And the results, provided that lifestyle changes are not significant, results will be permanent. So these are things that justify, a significant investment, for example. So people saying, well, I get this done once and that will be it for me. So that's where the part of the value proposition, which is a three-pronged one, I didn't mention it earlier, but we are effective because we do this in one treatment. We remove fat, we tighten skin, and we can do fat transfers in the same visit at the same time. It is safe. We don't use any general anesthesia, so any associated risks are foregone. And it is gentle. We target fat exclusively, which we briefly touched on a little while ago. But the fact that it's effective and it can remove all that fat in a single treatment session is essentially what people, it has some level of shock value because most people have trouble believing it. Right? It generates a good level of curiosity. And once a person has somewhat become a bit more comfortable with the brand and with the personnel, and they understand the process a bit better, they understand why it is factual and why it's the best way to get anything done is to only do it once. So for us, that is a very important element of our value proposition and an extremely important element of persuasion for prospective consumers, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think like you completely changing the perspective of being like, this is actually a feature. It's something that people want, is they don't want to have to come somewhere again and again. And I know a lot of people get scared of med spas and cosmetic places because they know they have to buy a package of 4 or 5 services. It ends up costing a lot more because you can't get the same amount. So as much as you said, those non-invasive treatments are definitely cheaper. If you have to keep coming back for multiple sessions again and again and again, which for most people you do, it does end up adding up very, very quickly. So very cool to hear a little bit more about that. Now,
And one thing to add about that is that this
yeah,
it's not just the financial cost that people are missing on.
Yeah.
is it's also the cost of opportunity. When you invest time in getting these things, these non-invasive gimmicks done, and if they don't work, you not only lost a lot of money, you lost a lot of time of your own life that you
Yep.
could have dedicated to something else, right? And only to not get any results. So that is, something to also mention, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to kind of wrap up really quick. I've honestly, I like to keep things under 30 minutes, but we had a pretty valuable,
Mhm.
fun conversation. So we'll try to wrap up with three quick rapid fire questions, a little bit about your business and also just you personally. So one of my favorite questions I like asking most people is if you woke up and you had a magic wand and you could just fix one challenge, it could be in your life, inside your company, it could be how NovoSculpt shows up publicly. What would that one challenge be that you think is recurring?
I think that I believe that I'm a tremendous believer that there is value in the right people. One thing that I would want to do is have a magic wand that helps me find the right person for everything that I want. Because finding valuable people is very expensive, it's a very difficult thing to do, right?
Yeah,
Talent and education exists across the landscape, but finding the right people sometimes is not as easy as it could be. It was once said that Napoleon once said, if I had two of those soldiers, I would conquer the world. It's not having the biggest army, it's having the right one. So if I had a magic wand, I would have one that would tell me, that would point directly to each person who is optimal for a position or a job.
I love that. I love that, especially for people who are trying to replace people nowadays with a lot of
Hmm.
AI. That's a very unique perspective. At the end of the day, no matter what your processes are, you still need people to carry your business forward. But
Hmm.
two more quick ones for you, and then we'll wrap up. Is where do you see yourself 12 months from now with NovaSculpt? Do you guys? I know you guys are operating right now out of Cincinnati. Do you see a second location opening up in the future? Do you want to go deeper in one market?
We are in Greenwich, Connecticut. We are in the Northeast Greenwich, Connecticut, north of we're right next to Westchester County. This is our proof of concept, our first location. And I see us making investments in the second location within 12 months. So that's where we expect NovoSculpt to be. And we have something coming down the pipelines as well on the patent end of things. We are preparing to submit for our second patent, and it will be, I cannot say very much about it right now, but it will be a very exciting thing, not just in plastic surgery, but across medicine entirely. So that's where I see us in 12 months with a second location and with our second patent filed.
That's very exciting. I'm excited. I'm curious. Maybe a year from now, we can get you back on and have some more information
Of
about what
course.
that is.
Of
but
course. Of course. I'd love to be.
to wrap up, I know that you're. We spoke about it a little bit, but you're not really like a sales guy or anything like that. But you're an MBA and you're a
Hmm.
strategist. For
Hmm.
an operator that's listening to this who doesn't really have the technical credential in their industry, what would you tell somebody like that? You're an MBA and you're a strategist. So, in terms of bringing value to the table for somebody that isn't technical but wants to get into this industry, what would you tell those people?
Right. Well, there is an inevitable element of technical knowledge that is necessary, right? In order to operate within any space, especially a higher complexity space like cosmetic medicine, for example, or some forms of engineering, there are opportunities for, let's call it the layman, if you will, in order to participate. But what my brief recommendation would be, I think the old school adage of learn everything that you can in as short a period of time as you can in order to be able to understand the business and to be able to add any value to it. There is no escaping the element of technical achievement. It's not necessarily the case that in order to bring value to an engineering company, you have to be an engineer. No. Salespeople are a very good example of this. Salespeople operate across all industries. They are not technicians. They are not medical doctors, or they're not engineers. And most of the time, that's not the case. And they bring tremendous value. So much so that without them, there is no chain of value, right? So I would recommend the highest level of efficient acquisition of information possible before entering any space and understanding the deficiencies in spaces. So that would be my recommendation in a nutshell.
Love it. Love it. If you're a salesperson out there, also keep that in mind. Like I have an extensive background, just uh, came from big software companies like IBM, Microsoft. I've done sales in a corporate environment, and you see how much there's so many parts of the puzzle involved with running a business. So essentially, just make sure that you're not just focused on a high level. Make sure your sales is optimized. Make sure your marketing is
Uh-huh.
optimized. And I think this was a great conversation, Roberto. To wrap up, where's the best place that people can find NovoSculpt and also connect with you as well?
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's been a true pleasure, really. NovoSculpt.us is the place to learn about NovoSculpt and to request an appointment if so desired. It's https://:/novosculpt.us, and we'd be happy to to tend and cater to any questions that your viewers might have.
Love it. Love it. And of course, they're also on Instagram as well. So be sure to check them out. Be sure to educate yourselves on some of this stuff that's coming out. There's a lot of cool things in the cosmetology space. And Roberto, thanks so much.